nobody warns you that your own retirement date might not be your decision to make.
Because right now, somewhere between your 55th and 63rd birthday, there's a decent chance an event you can't currently predict is going to end your working life years ahead of schedule, and most
people never build a plan for that version of the story.
Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 3 financial trapdoors tend to open at once, and what to do about each one before they do.
Researchers who study retirement outcomes keep finding the same uncomfortable pattern. More than half of people who retire didn't choose the timing.
A health scare, a layoff, a parent or spouse who suddenly needed care, something else made the call.
And here's the detail that should really bother you. Most of these people weren't reckless with money.
They had a 401k, a savings rate, a target age circled on the calendar. The math wasn't the problem.
The timing was.
I spent the last several weeks pulling data from the people who actually study this for a living, benefit researchers, Social Security actuaries, the big retirement, fund companies that track
millions of accounts, and what kept surfacing wasn't one danger.
It was 3 separate systems, each one capable of quietly wrecking a retirement on its own, all lined up to hit at roughly the same moment for anyone currently in their 40s, 50s, or early 60s.
I'm going to walk you through all 3.
And I'll show you why the advice you've probably heard your whole life, contribute the max, wait until your late 60s, live off 4% a year, leaves out the one scenario the data says is actually
most likely one, the scenario where you don't get to pick your own exit date. Here's why this sneaks past so many smart, careful people.
A retirement plan looks like arithmetic. Balance, contribution rate, expected growth, target age, plug it in, get a number, feel reassured.
But that number is quietly betting that several unrelated systems will all behave for the next 15 or 20 years. Your body, your employer, the stock market, Congress, and the insurance industry. History is not kind to that particular bet. Picture it like this. You've mapped a long road trip.
The destination is set for age 67. The gauge says you've got enough fuel. What almost nobody tells you is that the gauge has a documented habit of reading 3 to 5 years higher than reality, confirmed across multiple independent studies, and just past the point
Where your headlights stop reaching, there's a stretch of road that never made it onto the map at all.
The retirement gap doesn't wait for your permission to show up.
That stretch includes a multi-year window with no employer health coverage, no Medicare yet, and as of this year, a public insurance marketplace where the extra subsidies that used to keep
premiums manageable have quietly disappeared. There's also a hard, specific date sitting inside the Social Security system that most people treat as a far-off abstraction.
It isn't. I'll give you that exact date in a few minutes, but first, let's make this real with a story.
Call him Owen, 54 years old, a little over 200,000 saved, 11 years until his planned exit at 65.
His plan looked airtight on paper. His financial advisor signed off. His spouse was on board. He felt, in his own words, completely on track.
Then, at 57, Owen slipped off a ladder cleaning out gutters.
nothing life, threatening a broken wrist, a torn shoulder tendon, but it sidelined him from the physical side of his job for months.
While he was recovering, his company quietly restructured. He returned to a role that paid noticeably less.
He adjusted because that's what responsible people do. Ready for the second hit, roughly a year and a half later, a second round of layoffs came through, and this time Owen was in it.
59 years old, about a year of expenses saved outside his retirement accounts, and his 401k still years away from penalty, free access.
Owen's story isn't a disaster story. He landed on his feet eventually, but notice what actually broke, not the math.
The assumption baked quietly into the math that nothing would interrupt the plan before 65.
Something did, and the distance between interrupted and originally scheduled is where the real damage lies. Here's the reframe I want stuck in your head for the rest of this video. The problem most people diagnose is I'm not saving enough. That's true, but it's not the real problem.
The real problem is that most retirement plans are engineered around a finish line that most people never actually reach on schedule.
You can do everything right for a target of 67 and still come up short because your actual finish line arrived at 61 uninvited and nobody built the model around that possibility.
This pattern shows up again and again in the research.
A majority of workers end up retiring earlier than they intended, most often because of health limitations or job loss rather than financial readiness.
The typical actual retirement age lands several years below the age people say they're aiming for, and that gap has held steady across decades of survey. Most workers say they expect to keep earning some income after retiring. Far fewer retirees actually manage to. The comfortable idea of bridging the gap with part-time work sounds fine until you're 60, too, with a new physical limitation and a job market that's moved on without you.
Check your own runway right now. Are you counting on years that might not be yours to spend? Stay with me because the next part changes the actual number you need to be planning around.
Let me introduce a second character, someone I'll call Priya.
51. A working financial advisor of her own, roughly 300,000 saved, a projected path to comfortably over 7 figures by 65. She's done more homework than almost anyone I know. I'll come back to her math in a minute because it reveals something important.
But first, the second mechanism, 3 costs that tend to land all at once, right at the moment people actually walk out the door. The first is the healthcare gap, the stretch between the average actual retirement age and Medicare eligibility at 65.
This year, the picture got noticeably worse. The extra subsidies that had made marketplace insurance affordable for early retirees quietly expired, and the income cliff at roughly 4 times.
Poverty line is back in force.
For someone earning above that threshold, full-price marketplace coverage can easily run over $1,000 a month once age-based pricing kicks in and industry analysis shows premiums.
Payments for many enrollees have more than doubled compared to last year. Added up across a typical multi-year gap, and you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars nobody budgeted for, spent during the exact years when your portfolio can least afford to be drained.
The second cost is Social Security timing. Claim early and your monthly check is locked in at a permanently reduced rate for the rest of your life.
Wait past full retirement age, and every additional year adds a guaranteed increase to your benefit. A return no index fund on earth legally promises you. This isn't a scheduling choice. It's one of the largest financial decisions most people will ever make, and most people make it reactively, under pressure, instead of deliberately.
The third cost is the quiet one, lost years of contributions and compounding. Picture someone earning a solid 6-figure income, contributing steadily.
5 years of contributions cut short doesn't just remove those dollars. It removes everything those dollars would have grown into over the following decades.
Run the numbers on a mid-6-figure balance losing 5 years of compounding, and the gap between the two outcomes can easily translate into thousands of dollars less in spendable income every single year for the rest of retirement. By the way, if this kind of research is useful to you, hit like on this video.
It genuinely helps more people find it. Anyway, back to the ambush.
Stack all 3 together, the coverage gap, the reduced lifetime benefit, the lost compounding, and you get why researchers keep finding that a majority of new retirees are caught off guard by the true cost of leaving work. Most people's retirement calculator never accounts for any of this.
It assumes the healthy, scheduled, fully employed version of your future, not the version the statistics say is actually more common.
Now back to Priya. Her plan works beautifully if she exits exactly on schedule at 65. But run her numbers at 61 instead because her employer restructures or her health shifts and her balance is meaningfully smaller before she's withdrawn a single dollar.
Layer on several years of full price health premiums she never budgeted for. Layer on a reduced Social Security benefit because she claimed early out of necessity.
The gap between her scheduled outcome and her early outcome isn't a rounding error. It's tens of thousands of dollars in annual spending power, repeated every year she's retired.
Your spreadsheet assumes you're in control. Statistically, you might not be. This isn't a math failure.
Priya's arithmetic is fine. The failure is the invisible assumption sitting underneath the arithmetic that she reaches 60, 5 on her own terms at full strength, under her own power.
Here's the specific date I promised you.
The trust fund that helps pay Social Security retirement benefits is now projected to run low around 2032, and when it does, the government's own estimate is that scheduled benefits get cut by
roughly a fifth automatically without Congress lifting a finger. That's not a hypothetical. That's the current published projection.
Anyone reaching their late 60s around that window is walking straight into a benefit cut nobody voted for and nobody can opt out of.
There will always be people telling you Congress will patch it in time, and they might be right, but Congress will probably fix it eventually is a hope, not a strategy.
And hope has never been a great retirement plan.
This lands hardest on one particular slice of the workforce, people currently in their late 40s through early 60s, the ones who came up right as traditional pensions were disappearing, and
automatic enrollment barely existed yet.
they had to build savings discipline mostly from scratch, through a stretch of the economy that included at least 2 major market crashes and a pandemic, with less structural support than the
generation before them.
Survey after survey shows this group expects to retire with meaningfully less than they themselves believe they'll actually need, often a 6-figure shortfall by their own estimate.
Layer the trust fund timeline on top of that, and you get a genuinely uncomfortable coincidence. The years many of them reach full retirement age line up almost exactly with the years the system is
projected to start paying out less than promised. So here's where this actually goes for Priya, because I checked back in with her a few months after we first talked.
She didn't rebuild her entire plan overnight. Most people won't, and that's fine. But she did 2 concrete things.
She raised her contribution, just enough to fully capture her employer match. She'd been leaving on the table.
And she opened a separate account she now calls, only half, jokingly, her bridge fund. A few $100s a month set aside specifically for the years before Medicare kicks in.
It won't cover the whole gap, but it means she's actually built a response to the failure mode, instead of just hoping it skips her.
That's the real lesson here, not perfection, just acknowledgement. Build the failure mode into the plan before the failure shows up, not after. So here's what I want you to actually do this week. First, run your numbers assuming you stop working at 62 instead of your target age, and use a slightly more conservative withdrawal rate to account for a longer horizon.
If you can't produce that number in 10 minutes, that's your homework.
Second, build an explicit healthcare line item into your plan for the years before Medicare, budget real money for it, not a guess.
Third, treat your Social Security claiming age as a deliberate financial decision with a guaranteed rate of return attached to it, not a "I'll figure it out when I need the money" afterthought.
None of this requires predicting the future.
It just requires planning for the version of the future the data says is actually more likely, the one where you don't get to pick the exact day you stop working.
Plan for the exit you don't choose, not just the one you hope for. If this kind of breakdown is useful, subscribe to Winds of Thought. I'm building out a lot more of this kind of research-backed planning content, and I don't want the algorithm to lose you between
videos. What's the actual number your plan needs at 62, not 67? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone.